And I'm just, on behalf of the taxpayers of the state, in the spirit of Ashley's question, I'm not interested. I'm just not, as a taxpayer, not just governor, I'm not interested in funding failure anymore. I'm not. I won't. Time to do your job. People are dying on their watch, dying on their watch. How do people get reelected? Look at these encampments. They're a disgrace. They've been there years and years and years and years. I've heard that same rhetoric for years. People are dying. Kids are being born. Overdoses. I met a young man, literally, was out there doing Project Homeless Connect, reaching out near the 405 freeway. I found out the next day he was dead. In the name of compassion, because we had a notice. I could have helped him that night. I felt like a fraud. I felt like I let him down. We got to be more aggressive. I saw a young child, a young kid in San Diego, who was with the mayor of San Diego right before his State of the State. This poor kid was addicted to meth. He was a wonderful kid. And he said, I'm really glad you came. He goes, I'm struggling. And there in the tent with his wife was a newborn baby. He said, thank you for coming. There's no compassion in denying what the hell's going on in the streets and sidewalks. They need to step up. Enough of the rhetoric. I'm serious. Enough of the rhetoric. People are dying in this state. It is a disgrace. It is one of the principal reasons people are so angry. They don't trust politicians. They don't like what they see. I'm sorry to get so intense about it. It's a moral issue. They need to do their job. And if they can't do it, let me know. Just say, we give up. And then we'll intervene. We'll come up with different strategies and different approaches. But I'm sick and tired of all the barriers and all the BS.
Well, do you hear that, folks? Gavin Newsom is tired of funding failure. How about that? Breaking news, everybody. I hope everybody is having a wonderful Wednesday. Happy hump day. I'm having a great day. Even though Gavin Newsom's trying to gaslight all of us and ruin our lives, I'm still having a good day, despite Gavin Newsom. He's such a scumbag, though. I mean, honestly, this guy, everything that he is guilty of, he pawns off and blames on other people. You see him throw some shade at the mayor of San Diego there. He's trying to act like all of this is just some random failure at the local level, when anyone who lives in California, especially if you live in the cities, well, a lot of you guys that live in the cities are kind of retarded, so maybe you don't realize that it's actually Gavin Newsom's fault and all of his retard progressives that back up every policy that he makes. It's not local level mayors' faults. Well, some is. You know, you have like London Breed and Shang Tao out of Oakland is probably going to jail. All this stuff. They're all in cahoots with one another. They're all running the same playbook. So for Gavin to, what's funny is the governors that he hates, the mayors that he hates, and, you know, local city supervisors and that kind of thing, they're the ones that are actually getting it right. They're the ones like in Orange County where they're trying to go after people and hold people accountable. Anyway, welcome to the show, folks. If you're here, jump in the chat, leave a comment. Sorry, I got my dog rolling around on her back behind me. She gets all excited when the show starts, I guess. So, yep, that's what we're here to talk about tonight, folks. A lot of California shenanigans going on. Gavin went up on stage today, and that was him answering questions at the end of his press conference, where he talked about how California has a $16 billion, that's billion with a B, shortfall. $16 billion budget shortfall. And like him blaming all of the homeless stuff on local mayors and local government, he tried to blame his budget shortfall on Trump's tariffs, when we all know it started a long time before that. So we'll keep going here. Let's listen to what Gavin Newsom used to say back when he was mayor of San Francisco. And he started his what was it, a 10-year plan to end homelessness? Yeah, that's what it was. A 10-year plan to end homelessness back when he was mayor of San Francisco. And it's weird how all these problems seem to have gotten much worse. So just a reminder, this is what Gavin Newsom said back in 2008. This is this was his big plan back then. See how it worked out.
We believe fundamentally that food solves hunger, that shelters solve sleep, and that housing solves homelessness.
He's still saying that. He's still saying that all we need is more housing. All we need is to collect more California tax dollars from you guys, and the state needs to build housing, high-rise buildings, where they put money into no-bid contracts for unions and they funnel money back into the pockets of politicians. That's what he's been saying for almost 15 years now.
And if we're going to solve the problem of those that are out on the streets that we define as homeless, we better solve the housing problem if we're going to have an impact. And that's why we established this framework, what we call a 10-year plan to end chronic homelessness in San Francisco. We believe fundamentally that.
Let's see what he's saying now. This is in 2024. This is Gavin in 2024.
Well, the causes of homelessness are indeed complex. The solution is rather simple.
Huh. That's crazy. It's, there's 16 years later? Yeah, that is. It's 16 years later. Gavin Newsom says, we haven't solved it. It's a complex problem, you guys, where before it was just a housing problem. So yeah, there he is, Gavin the Gaslighter. So if you guys are here, leave a comment, like, share, subscribe, repost if you're watching on X, all that good stuff. Jump in the chat, make fun of me, anything you'd like to do. I'd love to hear from you. No need to super chat. I try to read all the chats that come in. So we'll keep going here. I'm gonna stop sharing that one. Yeah, there's so much that happened today in this one press conference. So much gaslighting, so many different things that he talked about, and zero accountability that he took. None from Gavin Newsom. Absolutely none. Let me check in on something really quick here, folks. Make sure we're live on all platforms. Well, okay, we're looking good there. All right, let's keep going here. All right, back to Gavin the Gaslighter. So Ashley Zavala has been all over him today, and so is Kevin Dalton. Kevin Dalton's been doing a good job just clipping stuff and pointing out how psychotic Gavin Newsom is and how much he lies, all that kind of good stuff. So let's go over to a thread from Ashley Zavala here. She's with KTRA, I believe. That's what, Channel 3. And I imagine she's probably one of Gavin Newsom's most hated people because she hammers him. She never lets him get by with just his continuous lies. So she did a little thread here, and I just want to sort of go over it. So let's do just that. Starts off with a little clip. I'm not going to play this first clip. It's only 5 seconds, and it's just 5 seconds of Gavin looking like a narcissist. But so Ashley says, Governor Gavin Newsom is presenting his proposed state spending plan for the upcoming year, $322 billion total budget, $322 billion for his total budget, and projecting a $12 billion shortfall that he and California lawmakers have to figure out how to close. I mean, you could cut some spending. You could do that. You could take pay cuts from some of your politicians as well. I mean, they've been a complete and utter failure for the last 10 years, 20 years. It might be good to cut the pay. So she continues with the governor begins with slides and the state's slight population and economic growth. And as we talked about last stream, our population growth is it's not exactly, it's quantity over quality. The people that you have leaving California are the middle class because they're getting drained, they're getting bled dry. And our population growth tends to be a lot of people that aren't from our country. So read into that what you will. She continues, we've got a slide on how California is now the 4th largest economy in the world, but could also slide back to the 5th, depending on India. Newsom's following slides make the assertion there's an assault on California and points to President Donald Trump. Then a slide on Trump's slump and how He expects California to lose out on billions because of tariffs. The governor notes the deficit is only 5% of the total budget. It's only 5%. It's 12 billion, but it's only 5%, you guys. He reiterates the state needs a plan for long-term and tighten up. And if Gavin says it's only 12 billion, that probably means it's closer to 20 billion, just because that's how Gavin is. One way to tighten up, the cap on Medi-Cal and healthcare for undocumented people. How about that? No, Gavin doesn't want to give illegal immigrants free healthcare anymore. That's right, folks. You get free healthcare in California if you're an illegal immigrant. Just another incentive to come here and enjoy our social safety net. He notes he's not cutting the program, but proposes to no longer allow most undocumented adults to join the program and wants to add a premium for those who already have it. Like if I lose my health insurance at work and I want to sign up for this program, I get charged monthly for it. If you're an illegal immigrant, you get it for free. So I could lose my job and start to go broke, and they're still going to charge me monthly for it. It's not a lot, but I have to pay for it. Illegal immigrants don't. He notes he's not cutting off the, oh yeah, I just read that one. So she actually continues. The governor is highlighting previous investments in education on K through 12 programs on UC and CSU. He says 5% 5-year compacts still in place, but in exchange, he wants more California resident undergrads at these schools. The governor has highlighted Prop 1 funds and how $1 billion in money will go to help veterans get and help housing. The governor awarded the other $3.3 billion of the funds earlier this week to try and get the unhoused suffering with mental health problems off the streets. The governor says he supports ASM Buffy Wicks and Senate Scott Wiener's push to speed up housing construction in California. So what does he mean by speed up housing construction? He means taxpayer dollars funding housing that's going to be considered low-income housing. And again, it'll be no bid contracts for his buddies. That's what that means. So more money laundering. Never let a crisis go to waste, right? Always use it as an opportunity to launder your money. Oh, let's see. Not clear if the law will get fast-tracked through the budget process now. The governor has highlighted efforts his administration, it's a typo, has done to save money, how accountability with its new website and improving efficiencies at the DMV. Accountability with his new website. That's his fact-checking website that he just put up to fact-check randos on Twitter. We've seen a lot of slides showing news headlines on his effort. Bulk of the presentation was a promotion on his efforts to save money and track efficiency of government programs. Some questions that he didn't address in the slide presentation. How is he funding the will of the voters in Proposition 35, the MCO tax, and Prop 36? That's the crime one. That's the make it a felony again to steal less than $950 worth of merchandise. Also not clear what he wants to do with the high-speed rail project, which apparently needs $7 billion by next year. That project was left out of the slideshow. Oh, I wonder why. And that $7 billion that they need by next year, that's just to probably not even complete, but let's just assume it is. That's just to complete the section from Merced to Bakersfield, a section nobody asked for, nobody wants. There's already a train going from Merced to Bakersfield. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. The whole high-speed rail project. It's funny how he failed to mention that there. Christine Kane, low-income units cost the most to build. Yeah, and they're not even low income. The rent is still super high, and then they always want to put in like coffee shops and gyms and stuff like that. It's funny, like when they conflate like the homelessness and the California housing crisis as the same thing. Like we don't need more inventory so Gen Z and middle class people can actually afford to buy their own home. He conflates that with, oh, we need more low income housing to put homeless in. And like it's just nothing computes. That's not going to solve the homeless problem at all. Just build multi-million-dollar high rises, and you're just going to stuff homeless people in apartments? Is that your plan? He never clearly lays out what his plan is to actually get homeless people off the streets and into these luxury high rises that he's building, because that is what they end up being. Are you going to build a brand new apartment and then just award somebody that's shooting up fentanyl on the streets, with just throwing them in there? Most of the people on the streets of California are homeless on the streets because they have easy access to fentanyl needles, crack pipes, the drugs themselves. You can be homeless and get some monthly money from the city. How does housing fix that? It doesn't at all. Sorry, getting worked up already, guys. We'll keep going. We're in Q&A now. I was up first. The presentation represents a $114 billion increase from his first budget when he took office. It's like, think about that. What was the overall budget again? 322 billion. So this is the budget. This isn't like the amount of money that we have to spend. This is the budget, 322 million. And when he first took office, it was 14 billion less. So it was like just over 200 billion when he took office. And our budget has ballooned. That's what we're spending on nonsense. Freaking maddening. The governor has now been asked about Prop 35 and Prop 36 funding. Newsom defended administration's approach to Prop 35 and notes the Prop 36 crime measure was unfunded. As President Trump seeks to defund Planned Parenthood, Rachel H. Bluth asked the governor is slashing the organization's funding. He primarily blames Prop 35 and unfunded measures, but says he's committed to working with the the California legislature, on adjustments because of Trump's efforts. Wall Street Journal asked about the homeless encampments, capping healthcare for undocumented, and sorry, she got a lot of typos in here. And things he said on his podcast, and he's moving to center because he's running for president. Oh yeah, so the Wall Street Journal called him out. They asked him about encampments and capping healthcare for undocumented, and things he said on his podcast. And is he moving to the center because he's running for president? He says he's always been a pragmatist. I think we believe in balancing budgets. Okay, so he doesn't answer the presidential question. In response to questions about the possible major federal cuts or Trump administration efforts that could attempt to control how the states use the state funds, the governor says all of this is part of the conversation he has to have with the Cal legislature and something to brace for in budget. New. Asked about LA Mayor Karen Bass's request for funding, the governor points to early budget action he and the Cal legislature took and signals her request as is likely denied on his end. The state is not in a position to write a check, he said. So that's why he's asking the federal government for tons of money. He asked them for some astronomical amount today. We'll get to that in a bit here. The governor noted that Los Angeles was asking for funds not related to disaster recovery, and those items are a non-starter for him. Again, he and the Cal legislature already approved more than $2.5 billion for LA recovery first thing this year. Northside, how you doing? Newsom is asked if the Cal legislature will need to come back to make tweaks to the budget after this plan passes in June. The California Constitution sets the deadline. He said he doesn't know. We'll see. They've got big math problems, he said, of feds and tax push for billionaires. Oh yeah, so Gavin wants to tax the rich. That's the solution. Governor Newsom is asked what reaction he's gotten from the president with the Trump slump assertions. He clarifies he's not blaming the entire deficit on President Trump, but the revenue losses, yes. Okay. It's not because companies like Chevron are leaving California and plenty of other large companies. That doesn't have anything to do with the revenue loss. It's a lot of tax dollars. I mean, Chevron's kind of a big company, and they have their headquarters over there in San Ramon, California, and they've been here since I was a kid. They're leaving. Plenty of other places. I'm pretty sure Oracle and Larry Ellison, they took off, right? Next question is, how about some undocumented people? Next question is about how some undocumented people can't afford the $100 premium the government is proposing for those already on Medi-Cal. I'm really proud the state is able to do as much as we need, and notes California can't do as much as he has done. So $100 a month for health insurance, I mean, that should that's a lot for state funded health insurance. I'm not even talking about for illegals, but the whole reason healthcare has exploded in price is, I mean, primarily because when Obamacare was introduced and everybody was by law, now everybody had to have healthcare coverage. And so what did healthcare companies do? Or insurance companies, they jacked up the rates because all of a sudden there's more demand. The governor is asked about Mercedes brothers' eligibility for parole. Oh, I'm sorry, the Menendez brothers' eligibility for parole. I don't really care about this story. It's old news. Says it's up to the parole board to decide if they use typical process or a separate analysis, and says it's a convo they're having. On June 13th, it could be a recommendation to him, but to be seen. Okay. Eaton Wallace with high-speed rail question. The governor immediately says project is moving forward and pulls up a slide showing Texas project is behind California's with no launch date. Don't look at our high-speed rail. Look at Texas. That's his response. There should be endless questions to Gavin Newsom about the high-speed rail. Like, anyone that looks at this thing with open eyes are just like, what the hell is going on with this? And where the hell is all the money going? Christine Kane, a budget funding illegals should never pass. 100%. 100%. It's not just healthcare. There's people have no idea how much illegal immigrants have more of a social safety net in California than native Californians do. And that's just a fact. Like, I could pull up all sorts of stuff on that. The healthcare, they get legal representation. Remember, they're trying to pass a bill to make a first-time homeowner program for illegal immigrants. Gavin actually vetoed that bill because he was getting a ton of public backlash. Daniel Lapertov, I don't know, asked about, what is this? Asked about the California State Association Counties statement on how there's not enough money for local governments to address homelessness. The governor just went off and said he's tired of the BS and excuses. That's what we just heard about. That was the clip that I first played. How do these people get elected? He questioned at one point, noting people are dying and struggling on the streets and have been. Like, oh, that clip was so freaking infuriating because he's quite literally blaming everything that he's responsible for on local mayors and local governments. And then you have mayors like Matt Mahan, who's actually taking it upon himself to clean up San Jose. I talked about this I'm from San Jose, so I know where all like the typical encampments are. And there used to be a really bad one right over off Monterey and Cottle, and he's cleaned it up. And he's starting to hold homeless people accountable. It's not just, you can't just put up a tent and camp out wherever you want, shit and piss on the sidewalks. You can't do that anymore. Matt Mahan's actually taking it upon himself to do it on his own, and it's good to see. It's somewhat impressive. Okay, we'll keep going here. So I got an article to read now. Might just play the video because I'm gonna end up talking for way too long. I'm on like my third thing, and I got like 13 lined up. And I only want to talk about California for an hour because there's a bunch of other stuff I want to talk about too, like the Clintons. Yeah, I got to talk about the Clintons. All right, let's go over to this. This is from KCRA. So let's just watch this clip because I don't feel like reading so much. And I have 6 articles that I got to read. So I'm just going to play this video on this one.
Governor Gavin Newsom tomorrow is expected to roll out his proposed state spending plan. And in that presentation, he'll give an update on the state's money situation.
Yeah, and how he wants to spend taxpayer dollars.
So this is obviously yesterday.
This year's KCRA 3 Capital correspondent Ashley Zavala is here with what we can expect.
Curtis, well, we're learning.
So this is Ashley Zavala. She's probably the most badass journalist in California in terms of holding the California government responsible. she's a pit bull. She's absolutely fearless. She asks the tough questions. If you guys don't follow her on Twitter, you absolutely should be. Ashley Zavala. I mean, she's doing more to hold the California government accountable than, I mean, if you ask me, the California Republican Party, but we'll keep going. Ashley Zavala, go follow her.
Ahead of that presentation, the governor is expected to announce the state will have to grapple with a budget shortfall in the billions. We don't have a specific number just yet. Now, he's expected to blame that and future budget uncertainty overall, mostly on the Trump administration and tariffs. Now, ahead of his budget presentation, the governor and Attorney General Rob Bonta today asked a court to put a pause on those tariffs as the state's lawsuit against the Trump administration on that continues. They've been arguing the president overstepped his boundaries by putting broad tariffs in place without congressional approval. The tariffs have impacted the state's ports, exports, and created uncertainty in the stock market. It's also made an impact on the state's taxes, which are major sources of revenue. They've also thrown a wrench into the state spending plan the governor will present tomorrow. Here's what Governor Newsom's Department of Finance spokesman H.D. Palmer had to say.
We can expect a fiscal environment that's much different than the one we had in January. We had a budget that was in balance over 2 years. We had a modest surplus of a little over $300 million. And through mid-April, our revenues have been going in a very positive direction. However, one of the things that we didn't build into our forecast in January that was looming on the horizon was the imposition of broad-based tariffs. We didn't know what they were going to be specifically, how much they were going to be, how broadly they were going to be hitting on countries around the world. So in January, we said, these are coming. It's a big risk to our forecast. So we should be cautious. Well, what's happened since January is those risks have become a reality.
Now, meanwhile, Republicans are skeptical about the tariffs having that much of an impact already on the state's budget. Here's what Republican Assemblyman Carl DeMaio is looking for in the governor's presentation tomorrow.
I want truth, and I also want sobriety. This is a governor who has...
Well, you called that one, Christine Kane. Yep, Carl DeMaio right here. He's doing a lot. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't mean to throw too much shade on the California Republican Party. They're actually seeming to be, they're getting more done, it seems like. They're gaining some momentum, so not trying to throw too much shade.
Brought on a fiscal crisis, even though he was warned every step of the way that he was spending too much money. And now all of the problems that he has created, they're all coming home to roost. Now, the reason why he said he had a modest surplus in January is because he knew he had a deficit, but he needed Trump to be sworn in because everything about this budget is Trump's fault.
Now, Newsom's administration has acknowledged that government spending is playing a role in the numbers he'll present tomorrow.
All right, that's it on that one. We'll keep going here. And I'll go back.
We spoke with...
All right. Okay, let's keep going here. So Dr. David Ameti, if you guys don't follow him, he's also good. He's calling out Gavin Newsom a lot, goes on Fox News and calls them out a lot. Also another very good account to follow. So he put together, kind of annoying though, because he quote tweeted all of his posts, so I can't just look at them in a thread. But we're going to go through them. We're going to start with the last one. So he just called out all the different Gavin Newsom lies from his press briefing that he did today. Press briefing, if you want to call it that. Also, if the Trump tariffs are what's going to be affecting your California's projected income from taxes and that kind of thing, why are you running such a tight budget? Trump's tariffs, we should be running a massive surplus every year. Like, why are we cutting it so close and maxing out our spending every single year, especially after we were running a surplus like 5 years ago? So Trump's tariffs, even let's just say 20 billion, keep a $20 billion threshold there where you got a $322 billion budget. Well, or you got $322 billion to spend each year. Let's keep it under 300 billion just in case something happens. No, They're just going to max that bitch out every single time. I would have liked to see him come up with a figure on how much Trump's tariffs are actually affecting their projected revenue stream. Like, how much were you expecting to come in before tariffs? Oh, it was just $12 billion. That was the gap right there. So you maxed out your budget completely. Like, Trump's tariffs shouldn't make it so we just can't make payroll. Tell me if I'm wrong there. All right. So Dr. David Meddy says, from Gavin Newsom budget presentation today, misleading statement number 4. California's budget shortfall is tiny as percentage of total budget. So he's saying our budget shortfall is only 5%, and that's not a big deal. Reality, in 2009, the budget was $122.9 billion. In 2020, it was $202 billion. So since 2020, our budget has ballooned by $122 billion. That's insane. Over 5 years, we're spending 40% more. That's freaking insane. 2024, $297 billion. Newsom more than doubled the 2009 budget. Why? When you increase the denominator, of course, the percentage goes down even when the deficit is much larger. So play this quick 30-something second clip from him.
That in perspective, that shortfall in perspective, it's about 5.8% of the general funds. You can put it in perspective of previous years.
So he shows percentages. So you see what he's trying to do there? So budget deficit in 2003 and 2004 was 52%, right? But it was less than half of what our budget is now, probably less than a third of what it is now. So this is what he always does. He lies with statistics. So it's more Gavin gaslighting.
Significantly higher, going back to the Great Recession, another recession. You could see some of the numbers that previous governors have had to grapple with. So by relative years, this is pretty mild. And as a consequence, we are moving.
When he's lying and he knows that he's just talking complete bullshit, he starts and umming a lot, if you notice. And he does his weird swarmy smile that he does when he's uncomfortable, because he's lying through his teeth right now.
Moving forward with making.
Oh, and he starts blinking a lot. So blinks, and he starts doing weird body language and smiling when he's lying.
Decisions that not only address the concerns this year related to the 11.9 billion, but mindful that we need to tighten things up. That in perspective, that.
All right, let's keep going. So he's got 4 points that he wants to make here, David Ameti. So let's go to this. He quote tweeted this one. So we'll go to this one here. So David Ameti says, misleading statement number 3, the $16 billion projected shortfall in state tax revenue is attributed to the Trump slump. Reality, high income earners who pay 50% of their tax are leaving for lower taxes. Businesses leaving and firing workers due to minimum wage laws, energy, insurance, regulatory costs, etc. So, right, that's why they have less money coming in, but they haven't shortened their budget at all. They're getting less revenue, but they haven't decreased their spending like any responsible person would do. Like, look at the California government as like a household, Oh, we got less money coming in each month now because somebody lost their job or they got injured and they were on disability. So they're getting 60% of what their income was before. Okay, well, we got to cut some stuff out. Where can we tighten the belt a little bit to save money each month? California doesn't do that. Like, yeah, we're getting less money, but we're going to have to just ask the federal government for it so they can bail us out in our poor spending habits. So it has nothing to do with regulatory and, California taxes, people leaving, all that kind of stuff.
Lawsuit. So let's jump right into the budget. When we last met in this room, we estimated we said it was in essence a balanced budget, $363 million. That was the estimate in the January presentation, all things being equal. Interestingly, since.
What? Are you guys catching this? They had a $363 million surplus projected, and now they're saying, I think they knew they were going to have a massive budget deficit back then. And now that it's time to actually put up the proof, oh, Trump's in office, let's just blame him. I think that's what's going on. They've just been lying this whole freaking time. These are insane numbers.
January, the presentation that I provided you had a revenue projection, and we were off. We were significantly off. The revenue that came in from January through April exceeded our expectation by $7.9 billion. The economy of California was humming. An additional $7.9 billion above our projections we were collecting. That has significantly changed since the actions of this administration. We now project on the basis of the work that's been done by not only our finance team, but those experts that we counsel and engage in an independent review of our estimates. We estimate that the impacts that I just laid out as it relates to what's going on in Washington, D.C., instead of seeing that increase in revenue through April that we were experiencing, again, $7.9 billion above, we're going to see an impact about a $16 billion downturn, not all in the next fiscal year, but fiscal year plus one. This goes into basically a 2-year process. Let's break it down so you can see where those dollars will decline.
There's this slide, like the Trump slump. He's really trying to blame all this on Trump. That's freaking insane.
Unsurprisingly, anyone's familiar with the state of California's budget and the volatility of the budget, reduction in capital gains being the most impacted. You'll see a $10 billion estimate in reduction in capital gains, and I'll give you some proof points of that in just a moment. You can see the impacts on income as it relates to wages, then the $3.5 billion in that space, income taxes, and then weaker corporate profit.
So who pays capital gains taxes? Billionaires, right? So what's happening? High wage earners, billionaires are fleeing California because of their insane capital gains taxes. Weaker corporate taxable profits, $2.5 billion. What does that tell you? That corporations are leaving California because their taxes are insane. I'm blanking on what it's called right now, but there's like a threshold of if you tax people more, you're actually going to bring in less tax revenue because people find workarounds like, okay, I couldn't afford an accountant before, but now they want to tax me 75% of my income. So I'm going to take, X amount of money, even though if I was paying 50% of my taxes before, and now all of a sudden I'm paying 75% in taxes. Well, if that difference in income with hiring an accountant over what I was paying last year is less than the amount of taxes that they want to charge me, and that accountant can find me loopholes and save me money, then now it's worth it. It's like a point of diminishing returns type thing. So if you tax people so much, ultimately what's happened, if you just keep raising taxes, people throw up their hands and they just leave. And that's what's happening in California now. The people are just fed up. Highest state income tax, highest gas taxes, highest sales tax, probably one of the highest capital gains taxes. So people are fleeing. What's the other one? Lower wages and personal income tax withholding. They're $2 billion down from lower wages and personal income tax withholding. So I just talked about California's median average income is, I think, the highest in the country, right? You take everybody's income throughout California, you average it. That average is higher than the rest of the country. At the same time, 79% of Californians are making lower than the national median income. So what does that tell you? That top 21% of people are what makes our average median income so high. So we've completely hollowed out the middle class. You're either poor or you're super rich in California. So the vast majority of Californians are making less than what people are making in other states, when California is the most expensive state to survive in. It's screwed up. I got a clip that I'll play about that in a minute here. Reduced personal income taxes. Okay, so we'll just keep going here.
It's that will nerd about $2.5 billion less in expected revenue. This is, again, top line 16 billion revenue decline based upon where we thought we'd be.
Oh, and it's all Trump's fault. Christine, you moved to Texas from California in 2020. Yeah, I mean, 2020 was rough. Did they shut down your small business? Did they force you to shut your doors and you couldn't make a living anymore? Or was it that they tried to take your job from you if you didn't get the shot? What was it? Like, California was draconian as hell for years and years, like all the way up through 2023. I don't know if you know this, Christine. I got fired in February of 2023 for refusing to wear a mask. 2023 got fired for refusing to wear a mask on a job site. So that's I didn't move though. I love it too much here. I don't have kids that they're trying to push a trans agenda on. I can still technically afford it here. And yeah, I just love it here too much. I'm surrounded by wet redwood trees. I live in the mountains. It's beautiful, and I'm a trail runner, so I love it. But I get it. Lots of people just had to go. They had to get out of here. Oh, no, we're not done with David Ametti's thread here yet. So let's keep going here. So he says lie number 2. So David Ametti points out misleading statement number 2. California economy is fastest growing in the world, and it's now the world's fourth largest economy. Reality, economic growth would be much less if you removed rampant government spending, and we would still be the 5th largest economy had Japan's economy not tanked. Newsom can't take credit for this. Japan leaders should. So that's the thing too. They talk about like jobs created. When you look at a chart and you see how many jobs were created and what those jobs are, how many were government jobs that are government projects? That's, you can create a job that's like, hey guy, take pile of dirt from here to over there. And then once you're done taking that whole pile over here, take it back to over here. And if the government pays for that person to do it, that's a job created, right? That's what they do with all these government programs. Bunch of nonsense bullshit. And they say, hey, look, we created jobs. We'll play this clip.
Speaking of growth, the IMF put out their assessments showing the growth of the economy in the state of California. You could see other competing economies, United States, China. You could see the 6% output in the state of California last year. We simply have no peers. No longer the 5th largest economy in the world or the 4th largest economy in the world.
Yeah, but 79% of Californians still make below the national median income. Like that is just such an alarming statistic to me. And look it up. Like, we'll look up what the median income is for the United States. Look up what the California median income is, which is higher than the rest of the United States. But 79% of Californians are below the national median income, which means that top 20% is making so much more money than everybody else that it boosts the overall median income of California higher than the national median income. Meaning the people, these Democrats, Gavin Newsom, that talk the most about wealth disparity and the shrinking middle class, it's the worst in our state. All of their policies are completely hollowing out the middle class and everybody's fleeing. It's all lies, all of it. And the working class need to wake up to all of these lies that the California Democrats, the progressives, Gavin Newsom, they're not your friend. They are not on your side at all. And that's why so many working class people voted for Donald Trump, because they started scratching their head and being like, these numbers, they really aren't kind of adding up. It seems to be getting harder to pay my rent. It seems to be harder to put gas in my car, get groceries. But they say that they're working for us, but everything just keeps getting more expensive in this in this blue state that I live. And they just keep lying, and people keep eating it up. Taxes, homeless mandates. Yeah. I get it. I understand why people left. Worked remotely for 4.5 years before they said go back to the office. That's when I quit. City worker, never jabbed. There it is, right there. 85% of Californians took the shot. You know that? 85%. And every dude that I work with all dudes. Like all dudes. I'm in the trades. Every single dude that I talk to says, yeah, I took one shot or I took two shots or whatever, but I had to because I wouldn't be allowed on this job site if I didn't. Everyone that I talked to, every dude that I talked to was coerced into taking that shot with their livelihood threatened. That's what California did to people. And it was fucking disgusting. And it was criminal. And these people belong in prison. We'll keep going. All right. David Ameti continues. This is his first. So I went reverse. I went 4, 3, 2, 1. That's where I'm at now. So his today presented as okay, blah, blah, blah. Misleading statement number 1. California's population is up to 232,000 in a year. Reality, population of tax-paying citizens declined, but overall increased because of illegals flooding the state for free healthcare, education, and homeless coming in for free housing, criminal immunity, etc. Yeah, so listen to what Gavin Newsom said here.
Unsurprisingly, it's a consequence of California's growth and its resiliency. The population of California continues to grow back-to-back years of growth, including last year. And the census data, 232,000 people, population growth here in the state of California. Unsurprisingly.
Okay, enough of you. So, and here's Gavin Newsom's henchman, Rob Bonta, just saying the same garbage that he is. It's all Trump's fault, and we're going to sue the federal government to give us money. Like,
alongside 20 attorneys general, we're suing President Trump for unlawfully imposing immigration enforcement.
You can see him reading off the card here.
Requirements on billions of dollars in annual U.S. Department of Transportation and U.S. Department of Homeland Security grants. These grants are largely unrelated to federal civil immigration enforcement. These are funds that the federal government has because of the taxes paid to it by states like California, a donor state, meaning this is our money and the money of other states that he's holding hostage for his own unlawful gain. Let's be clear, the president doesn't have the authority to coerce state and local governments into using their resources for immigration enforcement. This is a blatantly.
Listen to what he just said there. Listen to that last part again.
This is a blatantly illegal attempt to bully states into have the authority to coerce state and local governments into using their resources for immigration enforcement.
So he's talking, he's basically saying, we're not going to use our resources to help you find illegal immigrants and to deport them. The thing is, California being a sanctuary state, they not only don't help ICE, it's against the law for them to detain criminals that are illegal immigrants. Somebody gets arrested for robbing somebody, even a worse crime than that, and ICE hits up the local sheriff and is like, hey, that dude's an illegal immigrant. He's on our radar. Can you hold him for us until we get there? Nope. Cut him free. California actively works against the federal government in that regard. And again, like Dr. Ameti just pointed out, we incentivize illegal immigrants to come here because they're going to get free healthcare, free education, all sorts of other free shit. And then he's saying the federal government has no right to tell us what to do with illegal immigrants. The whole thing is just freaking insane. I can't stand Rob Bonta.
This is a blatantly illegal attempt to bully states into enacting Trump's inhumane and illogical immigration agenda.
Inhumane and illogical. That's Rob Bonta in a nutshell there. Okay. So we'll keep going here. Let's go back over to KCRA, another Ashley Zavala article. I'm going to play the video and see if I need to read the article because there's a California Globe article I got to read that's a little bit longer in a bit, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because I'm already over time. Jeez, I wanted to be done with this whole thing in 10 minutes, and I'm not going to get there. All right, this is KCRA.
Governor Newsom is bracing for another year. budget problems, and this time he is pointing to President Donald Trump.
The governor today rolled out his proposed state spending plan, how he wants to use taxpayer dollars for the year. KCRA 3 Capitol correspondent Ashley Zavala joins us now in studio to explain this situation. So what's the major program that could see some changes because of this proposed plan?
Well, Andrea, every year at this time, the governor makes his budget pitch, how he would like to use taxpayer dollars for the upcoming year. But as you mentioned, the governor said today, President Donald Trump and his tariffs are playing a major role in the state's apparent money problems. To partially deal with that, the governor is proposing to scale back the state's newer program that provides health care to low-income, undocumented people. All of this was laid out in his budget presentation today at the state capitol. The governor rolled out, as you mentioned, a $322 billion budget plan while bracing for that $12 billion budget shortfall that he and state lawmakers will have to figure out how to close over the next couple of weeks, or months, I should say. Newsom said the state is losing out on billions in cash because of President Trump and his tariffs. But I want to bring up this chart that shows how California's budgets have grown since the governor took office.
So there it is. So when Gavin Newsom took office, 2019 to 2020, the budget was $208 billion. Last year, 2024 to 2025, it was $332 billion. I mean, how is the budget going to balloon by $111 billion when we have a high-speed rail to nowhere? We're funding offshore wind projects. We're funding the homeless industrial complex. We're laundering mass amounts of money through these housing projects that they're trying to do. There's so much. It's not even waste. At this point, you can't call it waste. It's like Doge did for the, well, I'm not pleased with what Doge did in the federal government. You guys go ahead and crucify me, but I'm not seeing a lot of real tangible things that they've exposed. The USAID stuff, they didn't even really expose it though. Mike Netter's been talking about this for months, about how USAID is essentially the CIA's front group that funds projects that they can't do legally, like overthrowing other countries. But let's just say Doge is a good thing, because I mean, I guess Doge is a good thing, but they call it fraud, waste, and abuse. This is all fraud, if you ask me. I mean, yeah, there's waste and abuse as well, but I mean, it's like every level of government that you see mayors, you see assembly people, state senators, local people that are in charge of like committees that are running like a housing program or a homeless program, that are paying themselves, $300,000 a year to run this program. It's taxpayer money. Same thing with these non-governmental organizations that are handing out fentanyl needles and crack pipes. The heads of those organizations are paying themselves hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And then you just multiply that across the entire state, because you got an organization handing out fentanyl needles and crack pipes in San Francisco, in Oakland, in LA, and they're all these separate organizations like GLAAD, or is it GLAAD? I think it's GLAAD. That there's so much fraud, waste, and abuse that our budget has ballooned from $208 billion in 2019 all the way up to $332 billion in 2025. That's just insane. That is unacceptable. And Trump's tariffs didn't do this. Trump's tariffs didn't make it so, we can't afford $13 billion worth of our bullshit that we're trying to fund. Cut spending. You're incapable of it. All you can do is inflate the budget. California doesn't have a Federal Reserve. We can't just print the money. So they have to go crawling to the federal government. So the same people that he's blaming for his budget shortfall now, he has to go hat in hand to Trump and be like, please give us money. It's ridiculous. He looks like such a clown, too.
Office. As you can see, when Newsom first took office, his first budget worked out with state lawmakers was $208 billion. And you see that number has climbed over the years. Today, Newsom's number represents a $114 billion increase from California's budget back in 2019. I asked him about these numbers today. Here's his exchange.
Budget watchers, including the Legislative Analyst's Office, warned that spending could be unsustainable. And even a couple of years ago, the LAO suggested that a reduction in spending could help offset future revenue losses. So with what you presented today and the budget problems you've laid out, I mean, is any of this self-inflicted, or is the uncertainty entirely about President Donald Trump?
I love her. You think she's single? Think she'd date me? I mean, right there. Are you going to take accountability for any of this, or are you just going to blame it all on Trump, Gavin?
Well, we went from a $3 billion economy, trillion dollar economy a few years ago to $4.1 trillion economy. This nation state has grown, and as a consequence, we've grown.
He called California a nation state. What a scumbag.
Into a different approach in terms of our investments. We're also trying to reconcile a lot of challenges we faced. So no, I'm very proud of the work we've done creating a brand new grade, TK for all. I'm very proud of the work we've done to be the nation's leader as it relates to food insecurity and addressing that as it relates to free meals in our public schools. I'm very proud of the work we've done on after school and summer school for all and the importance that we placed on that, including high dose tutoring and reading specialists and addressing some of the gaps as it relates to literacy. I'm very proud of the work we have done on forest and vegetation management and the critical and essential nature of that work to protecting our communities. I'm very proud of the fact we protected our communities with unprecedented investments into vertical prosecution grants and supporting local law enforcement agencies, more accountability, more transparency, addressing the issues of retail theft and quality of life crimes. I'm proud of the investments we're making in behavioral health, and I think they're long overdue and important. I'm proud of a lot of the work we've done in childcare, and while I wanted to do more in this year's budget, we're going to have to hold the line, at least as it relates to this budget, and we'll see where the legislature comes back. And proud of the work we've done to address some of the gaps with the Department of Developmental Disabilities. The DDS often is overlooked in a lot of our conversations. Proud of those investments and proud to have taken inspiration from other states doing similar investments, but not at the scale and scope of the state. We submitted a balanced budget, as I've done every single year.
So to answer your question, Ashley, no, we're not going to take any accountability. No, we're not going to cut spending on any of these programs that have massive amounts of fraud, waste, and abuse. And we're going to blame everything on Trump, to answer your question.
So again, to close that $12 billion budget gap, one of the solutions the governor proposed today is putting new limits on the state's health care for undocumented people through the Medi-Cal program, also known as the state's Medicaid. Starting in 2026, the governor is now proposing to no longer allow new undocumented adults to sign up for that coverage. Those who are already enrolled right now would need to pay a $100 monthly premium for that coverage.
So, Ashley, how much money is that expected to save?
Well, the savings actually would not be immediate. In fact, California taxpayers next year will spend more on that Medi-Cal coverage than they did this year. This year, the state is estimated to spend $10.8 billion. Next year, that number would be $12.1 billion. But then Newsom's administration expects that number to decline with the new rules in place. The governor says there would be about $5 billion in savings in 3 years. Now, because the governor's proposed limits would go into effect in 2026, again, this is still a proposal, I've asked what happens if there's an influx in signups. Newsom's Department of Finance told us those numbers we have today do not account for that situation, so it would be to be determined.
So that initial number could be even higher.
Next year, yes.
All right, Ashley, thank you so much for breaking it all down.
Unbelievable. Unfreaking believable. So the solutions he's proposed aren't going to actually, excuse me, the solutions he proposed aren't actually going to address the problems immediately. You know, instead of some sort of drastic approach to we are in a crisis here and we need to cut some serious spending. So we're actually going to pause spending on the high-speed rail. We're going to reroute the existing funding that we still have available for it to other areas in our budget to bridge that gap. Or we're going to sell the high-speed rail. We're going to loosen up regulation on it, and we're going to try to sell it to the highest bidder, and we're going to wash our hands of it. Nothing drastic. There's no radical proposals that he's making to make up for this $13 billion shortfall, $16 billion shortfall. It's frustrating, you guys. It's really freaking frustrating because all he does is gaslight. Christine, they are so out of touch, 100%. Northside, 100% agree. Doja's a disappointment. And you want to see so many deportations that traffic is noticeably lighter. I do too. But there's no possible way that they can physically go and hunt down illegal immigrants. Hunt down is probably not the greatest term, but find that many illegal immigrants and deport them, as opposed, like, it's a much better solution is going after the sanctuary states. And I mean, I think that's what Trump's trying to do here too. Like, sanctuary states, we are going to withhold funding from you because you are providing sanctuary for illegal immigrants. Like, go after them hardcore and make people self-deport. I mean, I believe that's what Trump's actually doing. Trying to, like, we're going to hold back funding, and you're going to have to not give free healthcare anymore, not give free education anymore, not stop giving a social safety net to illegal immigrants, and couple that with deportations, and people are going to start being like, you know what, we got to get out of here. We got to self-deport. I think that's going to have a much more drastic approach on getting people to leave than just rounding everybody up and deporting them. Go after the sanctuary states with everything you have. So we'll continue here. I got another clip from Kevin Dalton. Geez, this whole show just might be about California again. I apologize, you guys. I just rant and rave too much because they get me so pissed off. They get me so fired up. I was in a good mood when this started. And I'm not getting blackpilled, but it's frustrating. I know you other Californians are extremely frustrated too. Let's go over to Kevin Dalton. He says, this is another clip from Gavin. The impact of these tariffs have yet to be felt. The impacts, however, being felt disproportionately in the fourth largest economy in the world. So Gavin points this out. So Gavin says the impact of these tariffs have yet to be felt. The impacts, however, are being felt disproportionately in the fourth largest economy in the world. He says Gavin Newsom literally contradicting himself in one sentence. Let's play this clip. Like, the impacts of the tariffs aren't being felt, but we're feeling them.
Point to the inflation number and say, well, it's behind us now, please. The impacts of these tariffs have yet to be felt. The impacts, however, are being felt disproportionately in the fourth largest economy in the world that has so much goods volume and trade. And I'll remind you, not just so much goods volume and trade, 1 out of every 5 businesses in Southern California are directly or indirectly connected to that trade.
He really said that. The impacts of the tariffs have yet to be felt, but we're feeling them. Like, he really just said that. Unbelievable. This guy is unbelievable. He's maniacal. I believe that's the good term for Gavin. Maniacal. So this is back to my point. So this is a clip from California Insider here that I would like to show you guys. And this gentleman, I should have pulled up his name, but he's like a expert in California economics. So he explains how what I said earlier, that 79% of Californians are making below the median income, the national median income. And again, you compare the California median income, which is higher than the national median income, but 79% of Californians that make up that median income are making less than the national income. So that means 21% of Californians are making so much money that it pushes our median income higher than the national median income. And 79% of Californians are making below the national income. It's just, it's insane.
The other point is that California's population growth or maintenance is highly related to migration from outside the United States. And so who knows what's going to happen now with all of this latest tightening of immigration restrictions. So
and he points out there that, yes, the California population grew, but it didn't grow by like Californians coming back or other Americans moving to California. In fact, a lot of middle class and high productivity people are fleeing California, and we're importing people from outside the country. Illegal immigrants, for example.
I'm not counting on that. Unemployment is higher in California than it is elsewhere. It's been like that for a little while. The bigger problem in my mind are not the big macro numbers. It's the quality. When you peel those numbers apart and you look at the quality of, say, job creation, we're not creating the kind of jobs that people can afford to live on here. If you look at since COVID as an example, 79% of the jobs created in California, or of the jobs total in California, pay under the US median income. California median income is always higher than the US median income by a substantial amount. These are jobs that pay under the US
79%.
79% of the total jobs. So you think about it, if it were just statistics and math, right? If you have medians, it should be 50% above, 50% below. 79% of the jobs in California pay under the median income for the United States. That's not good. Now, that's since COVID. Before COVID, it was also high. It was in the 60s, but now it's really shot up quite a bit. So the number of jobs being created are being created in these low industry sectors.
So, in short, 80% of us are poor, 20% of us are rich. There's no in between. That's basically what that says here. Got another, oh no, this actually isn't from Ashley Zavala, shockingly. It might be, because this is another KCRA clip. So let's keep going here. I'm gonna try and get through this stuff fast, because there's a bunch of other stuff I wanted to talk about. All right, this is from KCRA again. This is Gavin Newsom groveling to the Congress, to the United States Congress, more money for fire aid relief.
Now to our California wildfire coverage. Tonight, Governor Gavin Newsom asked the federal government for billions of dollars to help Los Angeles fire victims.
In a letter to the White House, the governor asking for $39.6 billion in disaster aid.
And she says to ask for fire victims. But again, the federal government would give that to the California state government, and then they would squander that money. It's not like it. It's like governmental trickle-down economics. Give the money to the top people, the government, and it's supposed to trickle its way down to the people. But somehow the majority of that money gets lost along the way.
2/3 of that money would be used for community and private property recovery. The governor's also asking for billions in business assistance, tax relief, and wildfire prevention. And in the letter, the governor says, in part, from day one of being sworn in as the 47th president of the United States, President Trump and his administration have demonstrated a strong commitment to supporting Los Angeles recovery by fast-tracking debris clearance and helping to pilot this all-hands recovery. Adding, the same holds true for many members of Congress. We are eternally grateful.
So he goes on stage today and bashes Trump and calls it the Trump slump. And then he goes and says, they've been super helpful with the fire recovery. Please give us more money. He's such a two-faced scumbag. So the Pacific Palisades is never going to be the same. And if it becomes even close to what it was before, it won't be for 20 or 30 years. And by then, it'll likely be private investors that come in and build homes, companies like BlackRock and Vanguard that buy up the land and build homes, and they'll wait for those property values to tank completely, and then they'll come up and buy them all. Pacific Palisades, for tons of different reasons, isn't going to be rebuilt, primarily because a lot of those homes were built back in the 60s and 70s when environmental regulations were way less. It's just too much money to build a new home now, because they're going to have to they're going to have to abide by current environmental policies. So this is a post from Wall Street Apes, and this is just a gentleman explaining why it's so hard to build a new home. Well, replace the home that burned down in the Pacific Palisades, or anywhere in California for that matter.
And the other thing that people need to understand is everything here is on septic. Nothing is on a city sewer system. Every dwelling in Malibu.
Oh, it's Adam Carolla. I didn't even realize it was Adam Carolla.
It has a separate septic system. And these houses in front, many of them were built in the 40s, in the 50s, in the 60s, and the codes were almost non-existent. So they have septic systems that are in place now that are completely unacceptable in 2025 when they rebuild. Not that they'll rebuild in 2025, 2055, when they rebuild. And they're going to have to update the septic system, which means Coastal Commission, Ocean, Sierra Club, dig it all out. And because of the proximity of the ocean, they're going to have to build seawalls so that erosion won't take their septic system. So they're going to be several $1 million into stuff that's buried in the ground, a seawall, not above the ground, but a seawall that's in the ground so that the storm and the erosion can't get to it. New septic system. I mean, they may be $3, $4, $5 million into it before one piece of 2x4 is even put up in terms of framing the new house. Do you know how much bureaucracy, red tape, and permits worth of nightmare this is going to be? Because regardless of whatever the mayor says, whatever the governor says about expediting this stuff, a septic system is a septic system. The code is the code. The seawall is the seawall, and they're all going to have.
So, like Northside said, yeah, it's Adam Carolla. Adam Carolla is a native Californian. Excuse me. And he came up as a construction guy. He knows what he's talking about here. He also knows California environmental regulations because he lives here in Malibu, which is right next to the Pacific Palisades. Luckily, his home didn't burn down. But his whole community is gone around him. Like, who knows if power is even back in the community. So, yeah, there's Adam Carolla explaining why these communities that burn down are likely never going to be the same. And the Pacific Palisades is one of the wealthiest areas in all of California, if not the world. So we'll keep going. Let's go over to Channel 7 Eyewitness News now. So Governor Gavin Newsom urges California cities and counties to ban homeless encampments. So there's mayors like Matt Mahan that are already doing that. You heard him going off on stage, blaming local governments, local leadership for the homeless problem that he vowed to end in 10 years back in 2008 when he was the mayor of San Francisco. Gavin then, after he was the mayor of San Francisco, became the lieutenant governor. Then he's been the governor since 2019. And has anything gotten better in regards to the homeless? I don't think so. So Sacramento, California, Governor Gavin Newsom on Monday urged California cities to clear homeless encampments, escalating efforts anew to address the makeshift tents that line underpasses, parks, and streets up and down the state. The Democrat governor unveiled a blueprint for campaign ban for cities and counties to follow in announcing more than $3 billion in grants for facilities to treat homeless people and others who struggle with mental health and substance abuse disorders. He used the occasion to exhort cities and counties once again to use the money and policy changes provided by the state to do their part to help eradicate the disturbing street conditions that have come to define much of California. So California government creates this blueprint that, like, this is what you have to do, counties. So, like, top down, this is the plan to get rid of homelessness in your cities and in your counties. And you have to follow it or you're not getting the money. So you got to follow our blueprint that's worked so well since 2008. Newsom, the former mayor of San Francisco, made homelessness a priority upon taking office in 2019. He made homelessness a priority 11 years before that. Well, he said he did, and it's only gotten worse. Tackling statewide a problem along the purview of mayors and local officials. He pressed on local leaders to think bigger to battle what has become one of the most pressing public health and safety issues in California, and one sure to dog Newsom if he runs for national office. So, yeah, he's trying to crack down on this because he's going to run for president and he wants to try to clean up his image before then. He appears to be the first Democratic governor to offer a statewide blueprint for local encampment bans. California has more than 187,000 people in need of housing, a quarter of the U.S. homeless population. So again, the state provides a blueprint that they have to abide by when the state's done so well at fixing the homelessness problem throughout the years. So the Supreme Court, California fought the Supreme Court. They were saying, like, we can't clean up encampments until we provide these people housing. We just can't do it. And it went back and forth in the courts. Like, California was saying, no, we're not going to do this. They were actively trying not to clean up these homeless encampments because we're saying we can't do it unless we provide the people housing. The Supreme Court comes out and says, no, you guys can do it and you need to do it. And now they're acting like it's their idea. The whole thing's insane. The whole thing's ridiculous. I'm going to not read the rest of that article. I'm going to keep going here. So this is from San Francisco Chronicle. I do want to read this whole article. It's an opinion piece, but it's well written. This is from a lady named Emily Hoven. Why Gavin Newsom's new California homeless encampment plan is just cheap PR. I could listen to it, but I'm going to read it. If you skimmed the national headlines on Monday, you might come away thinking that Governor Gavin Newsom just unveiled a bold, aggressive new policy for dealing with the homeless encampments that have proliferated across California. Newsom asked cities to ban homeless encampments. Escalating crackdown blared a New York Times headline. Newsom calls on California cities to ban homeless encampments without delay. The Guardian breathlessly announced. Newsom himself proudly retweeted a Bloomberg story that proclaimed that he was ratcheting up the state's effort to tackle the crisis by urging cities to ban and remove homeless camps. Look closer, however. The Newsom announcement contained little news. It was mostly a regurgitation of the guides he'd given local governments about a year ago after the U.S. Supreme Court ruling that gave cities broad power to clear homeless encampments and confiscate property from individuals living in them. Newsom's order encouraged local governments and directed state agencies to quickly remove encampments by following key guidelines, including giving homeless people 48 hours of notice before clearing most encampments, connecting them with service providers offering housing and behavioral health care, and collecting and storing their property for 60 days. On Monday, Newsom encouraged local governments to adopt laws that would formalize those policies. To make their job easier, he published a Mad Libs-esque template they could effectively copy and paste with room for some local tweaks. The template recommended making it illegal to construct any semi-permanent structure or public property to camp on public property, to establish an encampment within 200 feet of any posted notice, to vacate and block any public street, road, bike path, or sidewalk in the way that violates Americans with Disability Act. So if you guys are familiar with Oakland, from what is it? Is it 14th Street? Whatever street Laney College is on, like the next street over is where Lake Merritt is. And there's this underpass that goes under and it follows like the river leading out of Lake Merritt over towards Laney College. And there's a path on both sides of it. Both paths are blocked. One of them is completely blocked. And the homeless people will pull weapons on you if you try to walk past. One guy even put up a stop sign. One guy told me he was going to stab me because I used to run around Lake Merritt after work. And that underpass, Oakland used to have what they called them off the grid nights. Many of you guys are familiar with them, where they have a bunch of food trucks come to an area and there's live music and they're fun events. They're safe events. They used to be back in like 2010 when I was going to these things, even before that, back in like 2008. And that exact underpass that I'm talking about, it used to have all these crazy LED lights and like artwork down under there. And it was actually a pleasant underpass to walk under because it's like beautiful surrounding. And it leads into Peralta Park. The whole thing is the most insane homeless encampment you'll ever see. Well, actually not compared to the one over on 14th Street where they're building like literally a shanty town. But in Peralta Park, you can't even go there. It's a park that's supposed to be for the community. It's got swing sets and playgrounds for kids and stuff. You can't even use it. People don't even clean the park anymore. They don't do any lawn care or anything in there anymore. It's supposed to be a really nice park right next to the Henry J. Kaiser building. And this park that is supposed to be for families not only has crazy homeless encampments in it, it has stripped vehicles in it, like 3 or 4. This was about a year ago that I saw this, but I'm sure they're still there. Stripped vehicles that were stolen, brought to that park, driven up onto the grass, and they strip them for parts and sell them. This is what they're trying to address here. But again, this is Oakland. It's Coach, I heard that 14th Street got bulldozed this week. Huh. Northside, can you see if you could find something on that and maybe DM it to me on Twitter? I'd love to see that, because that's like, there's that famous 2-story house built out of like pallets and shit like that. That Northside, that's news to me. So I would love to see something on that. All right, we'll keep going. It also left it up to how exactly cities should respond to violations of the law. East 12th Street, that might be the same encampment that we're talking about. No person should face criminal punishment for sleeping outside when they have nowhere else to go, the template said. I think that is the same area that we're talking about, because like 12th Street and North Street kind of split, and there's like this area in between the two That's where they built all the encampments. I think you're talking about the same place, North Side. Furthermore, the suggested laws is just that, a suggestion with no teeth to require local governments to adopt it. It's also unlikely to materially change the conditions in the Bay Area, as my Chronicle colleague said. What's funny is the red counties in California and the red cities or towns, they're the ones that don't have nearly as bad of a homeless problem. The cities that have the worst homeless program or homeless problems are cities like San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose, which is getting better because of Matt Mahan, and Sacramento and Los Angeles. You know, big cities, big blue stronghold cities. They're the ones with the worst homeless problems. It's funny. San Francisco and Oakland have already begun more aggressive sweeps of homeless encampments. You've got Mayor Lurie in San Francisco now, and he seems to be making an effort here at least. Who knows what will happen with the new mayor of Oakland, because she's the one that advocated for a $50 minimum wage. She literally did. San Mateo County officials passed a law permitting homeless residents to be arrested for refusing an available shelter or bed. Fremont made it illegal to camp on public property and briefly outlawed actions to aid or abet homeless people. And San Jose Mayor Matt Mahan proposed arresting homeless people who refused an offer of shelter 3 times. So Matt Mahan's actually doing shit, noting that roughly half the people who were offered placement in the city in a new city shelter declined to accept. So there's mayors that are already taking it upon themselves that are doing more than Gavin Newsom ever did. And Gavin Newsom's blaming all of these local officials for this. It's the ultimate gaslighting. And he's throwing all of his Democrats under the bus. It's funny. There's trouble in paradise, folks. So what exactly was the point of Newsom's news blitz? First, to capitulate headlines and get his name circulating nationally. Second, to redirect the blame for California's persistent homeless crisis away from the state and towards the county and city governments. Exactly. The state has done its part to address homelessness, Newsom seems to be saying. Now it's time for local governments to do theirs. It's bullshit. The time for inaction is over, Newsom proclaimed. There are no more excuses. This claim has some merit, but the reality is also far more complex than Newsom is making it out to be. Yes, Newsom's administration has funneled more than $27 billion to local governments for housing and homelessness, a point the governor never tires of making. On Monday, his administration also released a $3.3 billion in grants from Proposition 1, a $6.4 billion bond measure voters narrowly passed in March of 2024 to construct an estimated 10,000 behavioral health and shelter beds across the state. We just need to bring back sanitariums, like honestly. But money alone doesn't equal results. A 2024 state audit, for example, found that California lacks current information on the ongoing cost and outcomes of its homeless programs because they refuse to do audits. They refuse to allow third-party people to come in and let's show us your books. Show us where all this money's going. They refuse. And that state homeless action plan wasn't aligned with its stated goals. Although California has taken steps to improve its data collection and analysis, there's still a long way to go. And yes, some local governments are actively refusing to do their part to address the state's homeless crisis. In the Central Valley, the Turlock City Council recently refused to allocate $1 to the city's only homeless shelter, a symbolic gesture of support from Stanislaus County City that could have unlocked more than $267,000 in state funding. The shelter is now at risk of closing. Well, I'd like to hear their response on why they're doing that. Maybe they don't see the shelter doing what it needs to be doing, and they want to take a different approach to this. In his Monday news conference, Newsom slammed the Turlock City Council. They simply turned their back in terms of accountability and responsibility, like Gavin does all the time, he said. Local governments need to step up to the plate, yet the state could also be doing more when it comes to keeping people off the streets. As the Chronicle recently reported, the California Department of Transportation is blocking a proposal to build more than 200 affordable housing units on a patch of surplus land it owns in the ritzy community of Woodside. Wait, what? Oh, hold on. As the Chronicle recently reported, the California Department of Transportation is blocking a proposal to build more than 200 affordable housing units on a patch of surplus land it owns in the ritzy community of Woodside, which infamously attempted to block duplexes and fourplexes by declaring itself a mountain lion sanctuary. Well, if you guys aren't familiar with Woodside, Portola Valley, that's where all the tech executives live. That's some of the most wealthy property in the entire country. It's like Sandhill Road, Alpine Road, up. It's the area in between Highway 280 and like the foothills of the Santa Cruz Mountains. That area right there, Woodside, insanely expensive. Well, I mean, yeah, if I lived there in a multi-million-dollar home, I wouldn't want them throwing up some apartment complex that's going to take people off the streets and throw it into there. Like, I wouldn't want that either. So Caltrans rationale: the project could disrupt an area that contains more rare wildflowers. A Caltrans spokesperson also told me via that the agency is evaluating whether the site is suitable for housing due to active asbestos contamination. They're just coming up with any excuse that they can because the people around there are super rich and they don't want this in their neighborhood. But Chris Shaw, former mayor of Woodside, told my colleague J.K. Deneen that the wildflowers are abundant in that area and that Caltrans had itself raised them to build an 8-lane freeway. Yeah, that's Highway 280. Is this really what we are going to get hung up on? I feel like the state is playing NIMBY with us, Shaw said. NIMBY is not in my backyard. And yeah, I mean, that is what they're doing. But I mean, it's probably because they know that, yeah, a government funded freaking Section 8 housing building isn't going to solve the homeless program or homeless problem. It's not even going to make a dent in it. Because what's your plan? Build this, multi-story apartment complex or duplexes and then shove the homeless into them? Like what is the plan? What California needs to do, the housing problem and the homeless problem are two separate things, and they need to stop conflating the two. The housing problem, they need to make it, when I say the housing problem, I'm talking about how houses are completely unaffordable and people my age and younger are never going to own a home because they make it impossible to build a home. If they want to actually address the housing problem, though homeowners aren't going to want this either because it's going to drive down the property values of their homes because you're going to have more inventory. They need to make it easier to build. And I'm not talking about for developers. I mean, yeah, a little bit for developers, but why can't we buy a plot of land and build our own home? Because it's impossible with all the regulation and red tape that you have to go through. Like Adam Carolla was talking about, you got $20,000 to $100,000 that you need to put down before you can even start pouring a foundation, Perhaps the biggest problem with Newsom's Monday announcement, however, is that it upholds a tired paradigm that pits the state, counties, and cities against each other, which only ends up raising everyone's political hackles and makes it even more difficult to comprehensively address the deeper entrenched problems. Case in point, the League of California Cities issued a blistering statement Monday that argued cities need funding, not model encampment ordinances, to address the homelessness. It also noted that 8 in 10 cities have encampment policies, and nearly 40% of cities have already updated their local laws to align with Newsom's executive order. So again, homelessness and housing are two completely separate problems. And that is like the thing that people need to get through their thick freaking skulls, because there's been this propaganda effort from Gavin Newsom and that have conflated the two for so long that people just automatically think, yeah, in order to fix the homeless problem, we need more housing. When that's not true. You can't just build homes and shove drug addicted people into them. That's not how it works. There needs to be personal responsibility. You can't shoot up drugs on the street. If you want to address the homeless problem, first step, stop handing out fentanyl needles and crack pipes. How about that? First step, stop allowing people to do hardcore drugs on the streets. How about that? Those two things right there. People are going to go back to where they came from because there's tons of people that come to California to be homeless and be drug addicts because we make it so freaking easy here. The housing thing is a completely separate issue, and that's what needs to be talked about more. They're not the same fucking thing. All right, that's that article. Here's another one that I wanted to read because, okay, this is just another completely separate issue. This is the gas stuff. Cool. Thank you, Northside. I appreciate that. I'll take a look at those when the stream ends. So this is from the California Globe, another great newspaper organization, and this is written by Katie Grimes. She's awesome. Find her on X. She does great work. So this is about our insane gas prices, and you guys have probably heard two refineries, the Benicia refinery and the Phillips 66 refinery, I believe those are two separate refineries, are shutting down by the end of 2026. And that's like 40% of our gas supply here in California. So gas prices are going to skyrocket. Keep in mind, we pay $1.43 per gallon in state taxes. That's just right off the top, $1.43, just right off the top there. And Gavin Newsom's electric vehicle push is making less people buy gas. So now they want to charge us by the mile. If you guys haven't heard that, they already completed their trial program. They really are going to try and charge Californians by how many miles they drive in the year to offset that loss in gas tax that they're losing because everybody's going to electric. And PG&E has California government by the balls, and our PG&E keeps going up too. It's a lose-lose no matter what direction you go. Anyway, Katie Grimes says, last week the Globe reported that California gas prices could escalate 75% to $8.43 per gallon in 2026. And that's the average. We're looking at $10 a gallon in some places. Due to the pending shutdowns of two major state refineries, according to the USC professor Michael Misch. California can ill afford the loss of one refinery, let alone two, says Professor Misch in a new report warning of an impending gas crisis this summer. In 1982, California satisfied 62% of its petroleum needs from the state oil producers, says Professor Misch. Since 1990, California imports petroleum from non-U.S. producers. From non-U.S. Sorry, producers have increased. They didn't capitalize producers, so it looks like one sentence. Oh, it is. I'm sorry. Imports of petroleum from non-U.S. producers have increased by a staggering 713%. While California was becoming more dependent on foreign sources, the overall U.S. became less dependent. So California has more than enough crude oil to pull out of the ground in California, refine here, and supply our entire state with gas. But instead, because of green environmental policies, we've decided to outsource our refining and send our pollution somewhere else, as if that's doing something to help climate change. It's not. You're just moving it from one area to the other. For his warning, Professor Misch was rewarded with a very nasty smear from Governor Gavin Newsom, accusing the professor of being bankrolled by Saudi Arabia. How about that? So this is from Gavin Newsom's press office, who's run by that dude Brandon something or other, the total shitbag. Apparently, all it takes to make headlines these days is publishing an unsourced study by someone bankrolled by Saudi Arabia utilizing the scientific method of guessing. Would encourage reporters to check sources before lending your outlets credibility. They're looking at Fox 11 Los Angeles that said California could soon face dual crises as two refineries are set to shut down. Like, they're calling it bullshit. How is shutting down two refineries, like 40% of our gas, not going to affect prices? Like, how? Before going any further, this is the short bio of Professor Misch at the Globe. So this is the guy they tried to defame and call him a puppet of Saudi Arabia. Professor Misch has been a member of the USC faculty since 1997, responsible for teaching and coordinating USC's Marshall Management Consulting undergraduate and graduate curricula and programs. Misch brings over 43 years of global management consulting experience in strategic planning, mergers, turnarounds, and strategic innovation in both the classroom and clients. It's apparent that Professor Misch knows what he's talking about. In a statement to KTLA, Misch said, allegations have been levied as to being an agent of working for or on behalf of and being bankrolled by Saudi Arabia. Nothing can be further from the truth. and the allegations are patently inaccurate and without substance or merit. For the record, my work in Saudi Arabia had absolutely nothing to do with petroleum, and I received no payments from Saudi Petroleum Company or any oil company, Mish told KTLA. He said his Vision 2030 work involved steering the Saudi economy away from fossil fuels. So this is another green energy guy. This isn't even like a big oil guy at all. He's on board with the whole transition to electric vehicles crap. So this like isn't some Republican. This isn't some hardcore conservative that wants to drill baby drill. Professor Mish's research has raised legitimate questions about the state's energy future, Senate Minority Leader Brian Jones said Monday. Rather than engaging with the data or addressing California's growing concerns about affordability, Governor Newsom is targeting an academic professor simply because he doesn't like the conclusions, said Senate Minority Leader Jones. This kind of petty politics and slanderous attack is not statesmanlike. Californians deserve better than a governor who hides behind communication staffers. That's he's talking about the guy that runs that account, because it's not Gavin Newsom that said that. It's the shitbag Brandon something or other. Who hides behind communications staffers while attempting to discredit and slander respected experts. The governor's so-called rapid response team, that's this guy. I need to pull him up. I pulled him up last episode, but that's who he's talking about, this Brandon guy. The governor's so-called rapid response team has reached out to reporters with false and defamatory claims about Professor Mish and his motives. Professor Mish is a widely published and highly respected scholar who has published more than 150 papers, many focused on California's oil and gas sector. The Globe knows about governor's so-called rapid response team led by Brandon Richards. That's the guy. Find him on X. He's a Brandon Richards, he, him, they put it because he's got his pronouns in his bio, having been on the receiving end of some crazy disinformation and threats demanding we retract articles, well-sourced, documented, and linked articles. Senator Jones continues, if the governor believes Professor Mish's projections are flawed, there's a better path. Ask the many highly paid experts within his own administration, continued Leader Jones. The California Independent Systems Operator, appointed by Newsom himself, has the background and independence to weigh in on basic economics of gasoline supply and demand. As the ISO would likely affirm, the closure of 2 state refineries would reduce supply and logically drive up prices. That's not bias, it's basic economics. As the Globe reported in March, Governor Gavin Newsom, who is currently preoccupied with his new vanity podcast, may want to consider talking to oil and gas industry officials, something he has failed to do in the last 16 years in the last 6 years as California governor. There is no excuse for Newsom's negligence of an industry which is an economic powerhouse in the state, providing hundreds of thousands of jobs, over 50 million in paychecks to workers, and billions in state and local federal taxes. So that's the other thing. You're talking about your budget shortfall, your $16 billion budget shortfall. What about these 2 refineries that are shutting down, and those jobs are just going to disappear? How about all that tax revenue? Oh, it's Trump's slump. Trump's tariffs are doing it. The oil and gas industry has contributed hundreds of billions of dollars to the state's economy, and Gavin Newsom won't talk about them. Instead, Newsom is regulating the viability out of California oil and gas industry. Right. In March, the Globe reported on a study also by Professor Mish, which found that the factors contributing to California's high gasoline prices over the last 50 years are self-imposed by state officials and politicians. Using 50 years of data, it turns out that the governor is its own worst enemy. And Governor Gavin Newsom and his administration of radical climate change disciples are a significant part of chasing Chevron out and the upcoming closure of two refineries. So yeah, the 2 refineries closing and Chevron is moving its headquarters to Texas. I believe it's Texas. The Globe reported on Chevron's announcement last August and their corporate relocation to Houston, Texas, from the Bay Area, where it was based since 1879. So this is their corporate headquarters in San Ramon. California's own Chevron Oil Company is taking its headquarters to Houston, Texas, from San Ramon, California, the latest big business to flee the Golden State. Chevron is in good company joining X/Twitter, SpaceX, Oracle. Okay, so these are all the companies that have left, that brought their headquarters out of California. So Chevron is in good company with X, SpaceX, Oracle, Hewlett Packard, Charles Schwab, the Toyota Motor North America. That was the NUMMI plant. That was the NUMMI plant in Fremont that Tesla actually took over. So that NUMMI plant left California back in like 2009, right at the beginning of when the housing bubble popped. Toyota shut down that plant and moved wherever, and then it sat vacant for years, and then Elon took it over and it became a Tesla manufacturing facility. If it shuts down again, that's another tons of jobs taken directly out of the Bay Area. This comes as no surprise to anyone watching California Governor Gavin Newsom deflect from his own debacles radical policies to the oil and gas industry, demonizing producers and refiners as evil polluters and price gougers, even filing a lawsuit last year against 5 of the largest oil companies, including Chevron. While Newsom prioritizes climate change schemes at the expense of the oil and gas industry, a timely report by the Los Angeles Economic Development Corporation in March revealed the significant role oil and gas plays in California economy. The report found that across California, the oil and gas industry supports 536,770 jobs, generates $53 billion in labor income, and contributes $166 billion in economic activity to California's gross state product, the GSP. Additionally, it generates $47.9 billion in state and local taxes and $16.3 billion in federal taxes. How about that? $47.9 billion in taxes oil and gas gives to the California government. The oil and gas industry is an economic powerhouse, and Gavin Newsom and his handlers want to shut it down and run it out of the state. And apparently, by any means necessary, including trying to destroy the college professor who delivered the studies which don't comport to Newsom's ideology or his electability. So a lot of people are speculating that Gavin's doing all of this to try and get oil and gas companies to leave California so they can nationalize, or if California is a nation, take control of the oil and gas industry in California, make it government run. That's a conspiracy theory that Gavin's doing all this on purpose so California can literally nationalize our oil and gas supply. In November, Professor Misch published an op-ed in the Globe warning that a significant increase in the retail price of gasoline that Californians will pay at the pump is expected for 2025. The projected increase could drive California's retail gas prices to exceed the national average by as much as 62% by late 2025. And that's as the rest of the country's gas prices are going down. The increase will contribute to inflation, add to the exceptionally high cost of living in California, where only 16% of residents can afford to buy a home. Again, that's 79% of Californians that are making under the national median income. Look at that. Only 16% of Californians can afford to buy a home. I'm not one of them. And has a disproportionate and adverse impact on lower income Californians. The governor and his minions should thank Professor Misch for his expertise and maybe instead draw on Econ 101 basics from him. That was a harsh article. Katie Grimes, she's calling them out. So there it is. Like all of our gas prices issues are completely self-inflicted. It has nothing to do with oil companies gouging Californians. It's not that. So again, just like every other problem in California, it's California government inflicted, and Gavin tries to, gaslight and blame other people for what he's doing wrong. So there it is. All right, we'll keep going here. Yeah, it's going to be an all California episode. I apologize, folks. I'll have to get the rest of this stuff on Sunday. I'll try not to talk about California at all on Sunday, but who knows? Some other shenanigans might pop off that I have to discuss. So go over to Kevin Dalton. We'll try to get through this quickly. I only got like 3 more things that I'm trying to get to. So this is about State Farm, because you guys know how it's impossible to get housing insurance in California because they put price caps on how much insurance companies can charge people, even though, fire risk has made insurance companies reassess the risk that houses are under due to, again, a lot of California's environmental policies, where for years and years and years, we just let our forests go wild and we didn't do any controlled burns and that kind of thing. Like Trump says, you got to rake the forest. It's kind of true. That's what they do. They rake the forest and they bring like fuel being sticks and dead bushes and dead limbs that have fallen to the forest floor, and you rake them into a big pile and you burn them, because that's the stuff. Trees don't just combust into fire. It's the stuff on the ground, and then they go up the trees. Anyway, so State Farm, Kevin Dalton says, shocking, not shocking. The California Insurance Commissioner, Ricardo Lara, approved an insurance rate hike of up to 38% for State Farm customers, because they got to recoup their losses, right? Let's listen to this clip. This is from ABC Channel 7.
Farm has been given the green light to hike up rates for homeowners. The insurance giant says it expects to pay $7 billion in claims from the LA fires in January.
I have another question. Sorry. The plane dropping the red stuff, the fire retardant. I've wondered this. I haven't heard anybody talk about it. Why aren't we dropping water? I want to know if there's some sort of backroom deal made with the manufacturer of that red fire retardant stuff, and they're using that instead of water because, wheels are getting greased and, they're contributing to campaigns and that kind of thing. I'm asking the question. I'm not making the claim. But I don't think that red stuff is very good for the environment. Like I talk about all the time, I'm in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and I lived through the 2020 CZU fires. That's when we had that crazy dry lightning storm, and more square acreage burned in the Santa Cruz Mountains, like 3 times as much as all of the Pacific Palisades. Two of my friends lost their homes, and tons of other people in my community lost their homes. I was evacuated for 5 weeks. It was a nightmare, and it was a horrible experience for all of us. But they dropped all this red shit instead of water. And I'm a trail runner, and as I'm running through a lot of these places that have burned, years later, when it rains, especially after it rains, you smell it. You still smell it. And I got to wonder, is this stuff good for the environment? Why are they using it instead of water? Maybe I'm just ignorant to this. Maybe there's a completely logical reason for why they're using it. But I want to know, has some sort of backroom deal been made to use the red fire retardant instead of water? I'm just curious. I'm asking the question. I'm not making the claim.
A judge ruled in favor of the emergency rate hike. Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara approved it today.
I'm a little choked up because he's kind of like the last, resort. He's where the buck stops.
The Eaton fire ripped off the roof of Rachel Telleria's home. She claims State Farm wouldn't patch it up, and now she has water damage from the rain.
We're 4 months out, and I'm still not back in my home. My children don't have a home to come home from college to. It's graduation. They have nowhere to come home to.
The rate increase could look.
And the people in the Eaton fire, these aren't rich Pacific Palisades people. Yes, they're homeowners in California, which makes them traditionally more wealthy than other people. But these are like single family residences that are like 3-4 bedroom houses. Yeah, they're in a nice neighborhood and stuff, but we're not talking about mansions here. So this is probably this lady's only home. She lives out of it. And you guys might make fun of her for crying, but I mean, dude, living through a fire is freaking stressful. It is stressful as hell. And then after the fire's over and you can go back home, there's all sorts of things to take care of, even if your home didn't burn down, like all the damage that she's being subjected to right now. So, I mean, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare living through a fire, even if your home didn't burn down.
Something like this for renters and condos, 15% for home.
And this, so talking about when people are displaced from their home, what the surrounding areas do to rip off all the people that have nowhere to go. When I was evacuated for 5 weeks, all of a sudden, all of the local hotels around here jacked up their rates to $200, $250 a night. I burned through all of my savings, which wasn't much. I had like $7,000 saved up, which, I mean, I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but it was like some of the most money I've ever had in my bank account. All of it disappeared in that 5-week period. So renters of condos are increasing their rates by 15%. So this is what they do. It's the same thing. It's supply and demand. All of a sudden there's more of a demand because people have been displaced from their homes. Rates go up.
Homeowners, 17%. And for landlord rental dwellings, a whopping 38%. The Altadena resident says she's only gotten a quarter of the money needed to fix her home. and she says the process has been a nightmare.
It's taken a toll on my health. I mean, I've lost 20 pounds. My hair is falling out. I don't sleep.
A statement from Commissioner Lara said in part, I expect State Farm to provide the highest level of service to its California customers and to fulfill its promises. I am focused on ensuring that State Farm pays its claims to wildfire survivors fully and fairly, and nothing is off the table.
I feel bad for that woman. You guys might say she's a Democrat. She voted for this. I don't care, you guys. Like, she went through a horrific thing. So, yeah, this might be all I pull up for tonight. Well, this is changing gears. It's just something else I just saw. No, I'm not even going to talk about that one. So let's go over to, all right, this is the last thing I'll talk about for tonight. Thank you guys all for joining me. I appreciate you being here. So this is from Kate Sanchez. She says, bad bill alert. California Dems are pushing a bill to give illegal immigrants taxpayer-funded phone plans. This is outrageous, especially given how Sacramento has spent this state into a deficit. What is wrong with these people? So there it is again. So free healthcare, free education, and now free phones. They want it. Like, how much did you guys pay for your iPhone? I'm sure they're going to be smartphones too. So they're going to be at least $500 a piece, right? Then the monthly plan, my freaking phone was $1,200. You know, I don't get a free phone from the state. I live here, so I'm paying. My taxes are paying for these phones. Again, we don't have a Federal Reserve. We don't have a money printer. This is all taxpayer-funded crap coming out of the state's budget. We're talking, and then Gavin's going up on stage crying that we got a $16 billion budget deficit because of Trump. Meanwhile, they want to give every illegal immigrant a cell phone. It's like, this is the shit that I'm talking about. It's all gaslighting and poor spending, fraud, waste, and abuse. All of it. So AB 1303 would create special carve-outs for illegal immigrants to access subsidized phone services while stripping oversight mechanisms that ensure taxpayer dollars are used responsibly. So there it is. Contact your local legislator and tell them to vote no on AB 1303. And again, this isn't something that we get to vote on. This is something that the California Democrat supermajority state assembly and state senate get to vote on, and then it'll arrive on Gavin Newsom's desk and he'll likely sign it. Just more crazy spending. Like, how much is this going to cost? What is the overall total of this bill if it passes? How much is it going to cost to give each illegal immigrant a cell phone? Really? California is doing that. No, don't deport them. Give them a cell phone. Give them free healthcare. Give them free education. That'll solve all of California's problems. So that's it. There it is. That's just, man, 2 hours worth of California shenanigans. Like, I did a show on Sunday talking a ton about California shenanigans. I did a little 30-minute video on Monday talking about California shenanigans. Every day, there's more and more crazy shit that happens in California that just needs to be discussed. And that's why I do this show. It's all I can think to do. It's all I can think to fight back against these absolute psychopaths running our state into the ground. I ran for state senate very unsuccessfully, might run for state assembly. All I can do is keep going to work and keep yelling into this microphone about all the crazy shit that's happening in California. And hopefully people start listening. So, Big Beard Highway 59 over on Rumble. Nice to see you, man. Our government has nowhere to put the missing children. I think that's why little action is seen. What missing children are you referring to? You're talking about all the freaking child trafficking that happened under the Biden administration, and that's a whole other topic that California, is complicit in. So, not sure what you're referring to there, Big Bear. ML, we live. Yeah, I bet, man, homie, I've been live for like the last 2 hours almost. So hopefully you got a chance to get in here a little bit early, Big Beard. With the number of pedophiles that have, I said the P word. I'm not supposed to say that on YouTube, I don't think, but I'll say it again. With the number of pedophiles that have existed I'm sorry. I suck at reading the chat because the font is so small and it's harder for me to read than articles up on a big screen. With the number of pedophiles that have to exist in America to make one wonder, because it's not in our communities that much. That leaves the wealthy. Let's get them now while we're robbing them. Okay. Yeah, I mean, our government is run by satanic pedophiles. Alex Jones wasn't wrong. So Yep. All right, folks. Big Beard, ML, Northside, Christine, if you're still here, thank you guys so much for hanging out. I really appreciate it. Love when you guys join the chat and keep me company, so I don't feel like I'm just screaming alone by myself into a microphone. Any of you guys that joined over on X, I really appreciate it. If you made it this far, give the show a like, a thumbs up, subscribe to my YouTube and Rumble channel, and give it a repost on X if you don't mind. All right, folks, I really appreciate it. I'll be back here Sunday night at 7 o'clock, and we'll talk about more shenanigans. I'm going to try to keep that more of a national show on Sunday and not talk so much about California, because I get so worked up. I get so worked up talking about California shenanigans. So that's all I got for tonight, folks. But you know how we do it. Before we get out of here, I got to tell a joke from the greatest book ever written, The Truth About Chuck Norris. Let's see what we have tonight. Let's see if we can end on a funny note, because these jokes aren't always funny. Sometimes they're just dumb. But I just open up the book, pick a random one, and we go with that joke. So here it is. Chuck Norris joke of the evening for you folks. When he was 7 years old, Chuck Norris's mom once told him to go and dig to China. He left and returned 3 weeks later with a secondary black belt in Taekwondo. And on that note, folks, stay CaliBased. I will see you on Sunday.